Episode 62. If I sound a little strange, it's because I am laying on my back. Or lying on my back. I always fuck that one up. My dad, who's my editor, he must get so tired of me making the same mistakes over and over and over. Um, and it's simply because I don't look up the rules and try to understand it. But sorry, Dad. Um, but know what? Things have been going really well, with the exception of like a neck issue I've been having. Last couple of weeks. I've been having a lot of issues with my neck and my back, and it gets a little bit better, but then it starts hurting again, and it really has been. It affects training. I can't do as much jiu-jitsu as I would like, and I definitely have to do like an hour of yin yoga, just recovery, um, the day after I train. So like that helps me recover from stuff, and it helps get me ready for the next day. Well, yesterday morning it hurt so bad I had to go somewhere. I told my wife I needed to get a massage or acupuncture or something, and I found someone really close to me. I gave it a shot. They had a cancellation at the last minute, which was awesome because usually she was like booked 3 weeks in advance. And I went to Dr. Jamie, and it was an incredible session. The acupuncture was great. She was just an awesome person. And then the body work at the end, like it was so painful, that I couldn't believe I had that much tension throughout my back and throughout my neck. And I hadn't had anyone ever work going that deep and that hard on like a massage before. And it was, and she said afterwards that, yeah, she was amazed that she could see just how much inflammation. Like she said, there was just a mound of, like my upper back was just a mound of all the inflammation. So she worked on a lot of that, got my shoulders back down. And then, so I was feeling pretty good the rest of the day. Still knew my head was a little messed up, the top of my neck. I could still feel some of the tension there. And it was time to go to class. And I decided on the way there, I was like, okay, I'm only going to do yoga. I will not do jiu-jitsu, even though the competition is on Sunday. And Anthony didn't get to train on Tuesday, so I knew he wanted a body to roll with. Um, but I also knew that if I went to class and if I didn't make that commitment ahead of time, that I would get sucked into it, that I would want to help people, and also that it was not going to be good for my neck. I was like, it hadn't fully recovered, and yeah, no, that shouldn't even. Now that I'm talking about it, it shouldn't even be an issue. Like the smart thing to do would just be to do yoga and go home. But for me, it was hard. But then, it ended up being really cool. My wife, she had hurt her knee in the class before, and she just asked if we can work. And so we just went to the side. There's old people, 40 and over, to the side, and we just worked on leg stuff. Which, well, actually not just leg stuff. We worked on a couple different things. And that was a lot of fun. And then today she told me how much she enjoyed that and how helpful it was, and it helped me a lot too. She was helping me with stuff, and her technique is great. So it's kind of cool. Um, but yeah, so this the competition. Hopefully, I'll be feeling pretty good. I think I will. I think with I'm using the yoga and the breathing and sauna, chiropractor, everything I can to CBD oil, cannabis, just to bring down inflammation, help me relax. The deep breathing helps a ton. Um, that's one place where I wouldn't think I would get a lot of releases, but it's crazy. When I go super deep with my breathing, I exhale. If I feel like I've expelled every little ounce of air, lots of times I'll get some great releases and deeper than normal ones. And then yeah, and that could happen a couple times within like a 5 to 10 minute breathing session. So I'm digging that. Um, oh, that was another kind of cool thing that happened this week. On Tuesday, I headed down to no, it was I taught class Tuesday night. Then on Wednesday, I realized that there's a group of guys. John has class with a group of fighters during the week, but he hadn't been doing it recently because he's now training at King's MMA sometimes. And so I said I would show up there, and if anyone wanted to do yoga or jits, I would be there. And this guy Simon showed up, and I'd worked with him a couple times. Like, great guy. I think he's 24 years old, and he was fighting on Friday, so he fights tonight. So good luck, Simon. I think he's going to do excellent. Like he's been training for a long time, and very smart. But it was cool that he was down to do the yoga. And a lot of guys, they just martial artists don't always want to waste. It might feel like a waste of time. It feels like you're not really doing anything. But he was up for that and doing some jit, and so I put him through an hour. Like, I don't know how to teach yoga or whatever. I'm not a yogi at all. I let him know that. But I just repeated what I've learned from Anthony and what I learned from the disc that I always watch and the yin yoga I always do. We just did that. We went super deep, and he was able to see. I think he said he got a lot from it, and he was able to see limitations, which was big. And because when we would hit different poses, I would tell him, I was like, think how much harder your kicks would be if you had this flexibility, and feel that tension in your hips. Like, if you want to get rid of that, then do this, because look at this, and this position is side control. If you could sink your hips here, and I think once guys see that, they're like, okay. And that's what's happening with the night class last night. Anthony had a great, it's usually a really good yoga session before we do jits. Sometimes not too heavy, and I'd like to do more yoga, but, it's a jiu-jitsu class. Um, but last night it was cool, and all these guys have seen that, and now we have, a bunch of different guys that are coming, and they enjoy that part of yoga. Guys that aren't able to make it on those nights, they keep telling me, like, man, I was like, I want to do this. I see that it's working for you guys. What should I do? And then I'll just recommend, even if it's just starting out laying on your back, doing the super light yoga, doing breathing, bringing your knees up to your chest, whatever it is. But yeah, man, doing something. There was a guy that came in last night, and while everyone else was rolling, I had a chance to talk to him because I wasn't doing the jits. And he's about, I think he said he was 39, but he was talking about how all of his friends he sees them at parties, and they're just, either drunk or just eating all the food, and just they're in terrible shape, and they're probably not going to live that long, or their quality of life is probably going to be terrible, and they can't play with their kids. And he was just saying how he doesn't want that. He's already kind of active, but he needs something like jiu-jitsu, and he really appreciated the yoga. He'd done yoga before, so yeah, it was cool to have that kind of conversation with a guy. But what else? There's probably an important reason why I wanted. Well, I shouldn't say important reason why I wanted to talk. Um, I think we might be doing the podcast Sunday at the competition, but I don't know. I might just be focused on competing. I think Anthony, it's been interesting how it's been going. We always end up in the same category. It's been crazy, but we haven't faced each other. But I told him, yeah, I was like, this one's to the death. I want to win. No, we're not going to the death. But it's cool. We have that understanding. It's like, okay, yeah. It's like, don't take it easy on each other. And that's something I'm always afraid of him doing because I'm older. I was like, no, I want to work hard. I want to know what I'm capable of, and but I really like the attitude I'm going in with this one. Like, I'm not. I would definitely be an underdog to win it. Like, I understand that. I understand that my odds are not. The odds are not in my favor because it's purple, browns, and blacks, and heavyweights. And this is the lightest I've been, and it's 195 and above. So there might be some huge guys, and I've had a very hard time with guys that are bigger than me. I mean, I have a hard time with guys smaller than me, so I'm not trying to say I'm anything, but especially with bigger guys. So it'll be a good test. But the good thing is, like, I'm really going in to win it, and I feel like it's a possibility. I definitely feel like I could. I don't know how my conditioning is and all that kind of stuff, but we'll see. And I also know that I can go in and I can lose. I could lose both matches. I could lose right away. I was like, that's one of the risks I take stepping onto the mat. But it's cool because I don't care. I'm happy that that I even signed up. That I'm even going down there. That I'm going to spend tomorrow having to go to a weigh-in first for it. And then paying money to compete, which is nuts. But it's a way to challenge yourself and to make yourself uncomfortable. Still, even though I feel good, like I'm sure tomorrow or Sunday I'll be nervous, but cool way to try to conquer that. There was one other thing I want to say, man. It was about friends, and just how excited I am about being able to work with them and do different things with them, and helping people see their genius, see their potential, and see that they can do it. Because all these people have done that for me. One of the big guys is Carl Dominy. Is one of my friends from Providence. He was the academic coordinator when I called Brown sociology department. He answered. It was like kind of a critical moment. Like if Brown had told me that, like if the sociology department had said, laughed at me and said MMA, like who gives a shit about that? I might have, who knows, maybe I wouldn't have done the project. I was at that point where I didn't know if I even wanted to do it, like if it would be a waste of time. But then he answered and he was pumped about it because he was a fan of MMA and he pointed me in the direction of the right people. We ended up becoming friends. He helped me a lot with some awesome photography. And yeah, so it's been cool. We've been having a lot of conversations, but he was one of the readers of Unlocking the Cage, as same with Ken Cannably, who was on here before. And both of those guys, I was thinking, I knew they're both incredibly honest. I knew that they could give me criticism and critique, and and that's exactly what I wanted. And they both had similar responses, and both of their responses were made me feel very positive about stuff, and about putting the book out. So it was just that was awesome. I think I see what each of so many of my friends had given me. And I see like their potential. And so being able to work with them now, developing stories, like how awesome is that? Um, Carl and his family are going to be coming out here in a couple of weeks, and then by the time he leaves, we'll have our book figured out. Plus, he just gave me the idea. Well, he has a brilliant idea for one of his projects he's doing with his that involves his photography. Um, and yeah, so I'm excited about that. With Ken, he's working on his Try Not to Die. Steve Montgomery's hard at work on his. Tim Lasik also, he just signed his contract. I mean, and that's such a cool one. I was like, not only is it someone, or not only are the majority of these people that I've met through Unlocking the Cage and become friends with them through that, but with Tim, it's like fuck, we fought each other. He's the fighter that I mentioned in the prologue of Unlocking the Cage. So it's just cool how we reconnected, and what's become of it. So yeah, man, I'm excited about that. Being able to do that, that's my that's what I'm passionate about. So right now, I don't know, life is good. I'm incredibly grateful for where I'm at. I think this next year is going to be awesome. The way I'm seeing the future is awesome, and at the same time, every fucking day, I remind myself, yeah, I could die today. My wife could die today. Kids could die today. So yeah, I'm not planning on it lasting forever. So that's why I don't know. I'm not stressing. It's like I know I'm excited that I have a lifetime's worth of ideas and books that I could do, and I'm also cool knowing that maybe they'll never come to light. Maybe I'll never get around to them. Maybe I just want to end up doing something else. And yeah, man. So, but all I can recommend is find something that you enjoy and do it, because I see it all the time. I see it all the time where people do that and then they're successful. If you are doing what you're passionate about, you're going to become good at it. And then everything else will follow. And it might take a lot of time. You might have to put in a fucking lot of work. Maybe there's, that is one thing I was going to mention. One of my buddies always laughs about me if I mention that I'm busy, because people don't think I'm busy because I have pictures of me in the backyard. I talk about yoga. I talk about jiu-jitsu. I talk about whatever. It's like, but I was like, you know what? That's not necessarily true. I was like, because sometimes, like, I try to multitask like a motherfucker. I'll be doing, I'll be stretching. I'll be trying to do recovery or whatever while I'm working. When I'm in the sauna, I'm always working on my computer. I mean, I will take time to do yoga on like late at night with everything else off, and that's my focus. And sometimes I'll do deep breathing where everything's off, and so there will be those times where I'm present. But man, no, I usually I am able to get in different things, but I'm not wasting any time watching TV. Or if I do watch TV, like maybe I'll limit it to 30 minutes. Um, but that's just because I want to get in my 20 minutes of guitar. I want to get in, whatever. Um, and I have my writing wherever I am. Like if there's a 5 minute break, I was like, I could go to my phone and be on my phone for 5 minutes, but if I have my writing material there, it's like, oh, that's 5 minutes that I could get something done. So yeah, if don't use the time as an excuse, and even if you do have a commute, even if you are driving, it's like you could be listening to a podcast about your passion, or you could be you can have the radio off and you can be developing your ideas. That's where you should be having talks with yourself. So if there is something you want to do, like, don't give up on it. I don't care how old you are. I see so many of my friends that are older that are finally, finding themselves and realizing, like, oh yeah, fucking, this is what I want to do. Oh yeah, I can get healthy. Oh yeah, this is like, fucking, life not gonna be around that much longer. So yeah, let's make the most of it. But what the fuck do I know? Why are you listening to me for advice? I wouldn't. Maybe sometimes. Um, let's see. I was looking for my copy of Twisted Reunion. Okay, here we go. Man, I'm excited. And the podcast is probably going to shift gears a little bit when we start the Unlocking the Cage book. The narration of it, well, we did the narration of the prologue, but I'm going to hold on to that for a little bit until we have a couple chapters in, and then we'll start releasing those chapters once a week. And some of those chapters are pretty long, so they might even be broken up. But yeah, I'm excited about that. And then so we'll probably be talking a lot more of MMA and the individuals who I'm focusing on the book. But until then, we'll still continue with some fiction. Right now, we're still on Twisted Reunion, going back through that, the 28 short horror stories. Not sure what we should read today. Looking at the back of the cover right now. Oh, I did just put it out on paperback on Amazon. And doing it through, this is the first time I tried printing through KDP. I haven't got the proof yet, so I'm waiting to get that before I really make the announcement. But if it looks good, I'll let you guys know. You can order it. It's only $9.99 on Amazon, which is pretty awesome for a paperback. And the real reason I did that, I could have done like $10.99, $11.99, $12.99, and definitely would have got a lot more profit. But I was like, you know what? If I look at $9.99 upside down, it's the number of the beast. How could I not do that? So in honor of Slayer, who I mentioned in the epigraph, and all the metal that definitely influenced the darkness in these stories, yeah, I had to go with $9.99 just so it looked like 666 upside down. All right, let's pick a story. You know what? Since you guys have been so good today, we're going to have two short stories. Not just one, but two. The first one's super short, that's why. The first one's going to be Last Embrace. After that, it's going to be Surviving the Holidays. Hope you guys enjoy them. Later.
Last Embrace. It's good to see your whole family made it. Amazing that they still love and support you despite the things you've done. I wonder if they know how much their presence here means. They came to offer prayers. They came to offer you strength, but all they really do is make your despair darker, your suffering sweeter. To die in your loved one's arms is one thing. To die helplessly in front of them is quite another. I suppose it's a blessing, though, to finally see all this coming to an end. Look at their faces. Look at what you've done. Look at what you've reduced them to. This has to be the worst moment of your mother's life, and you're responsible. The lines of fear and revulsion etched into her face will never go away. Your father's not doing much better. Look at the pitiful sight. His crushed macho facade crumbling. But their pain is nothing compared to what your baby sister is going through. She's staring at me, too young to know what she's about to see. She'll never forget this day, and neither will I. I'm not a mercy killer. I am simply the one lucky enough to watch them pull the switch. I can't wait for tonight. I can't wait to feel your sweat on my skin. You must realize how intoxicating it is to have a dead man's scent seeping through you. You have some fight. I like how you pretend to struggle with the guards so your family couldn't see you trembling like a little girl. How cute that you're trying to be a big boy. You were so tough with a gun in your hand. But that's gone. So take my arm. Squeeze as hard as you like. You can't hurt me. No? Fine. I wasn't much for holding hands. You don't have a lot of time. So take one last look at your family. Remember their faces. Think about what you've put them through. What you're about to put them through. They won't smell you cooking from out there. They're not supposed to. But this is an old building, and they'll start to believe they can taste the fried bits of you. The way you're sitting on me says you're going to be a fun one. The way you're arching your back, trying not to touch my chest. The way your legs are trembling as you attempt to keep your ass off my lap. Good attempts, but pointless. I'm all you have now. It's you and me. I know what you're thinking, listening to the tick of the clock. The governor could still call with that reprieve. That could happen, but it never does. Don't misunderstand me. I'm glad they tell you that. That last chance of survival toys with your emotions. It fills you with a panicky hope that won't completely disappear until the first jolt hits. And I've got a special surprise for you and your family. For some reason, the first surge will only be at 1,000 volts. The meter will show it at 2, so the guards will let it run for the full 60 seconds. Enough voltage to get you foaming at the mouth, bleeding from your eyes, shaking like an epileptic, but not enough to kill you. When they stop to determine the problem, you'll renew your faith, hope, and determination to live. They'll think they found the problem right away. I'm old and falling apart. A few quick turns of a screw, and you'll be back on deck. And what they won't realize is that I've completely drained the brine out of your sponge. When they throw that switch again, I'll be at 3/4 power. I'll slowly bake your brain and cook your insides before I take you. When you die, the guards are going to discover I'm back at full capacity and can't be shut down. They'll yell at each other and complain that I have a mind of my own, but it won't matter to you anymore. You won't feel your flesh sizzle, but rest assured that I won't stop until every inch of your skin crackles. Now you're sweating. Haven't even turned on the fire and you're already dripping. This is going to be fun. Surviving the holidays. At 12 years old, Paul began to suspect he was jaded. He wasn't entirely certain that he knew what it meant, but that's the word that popped into his head, and it felt right. What other explanation could there be for a kid hating Christmas? Paul just couldn't wait for this day to be over, the squeals of his brothers and sisters rummaging through presents, only making it worse. He didn't want to be this way. In fact, he envied his younger siblings. He wished he could feel their joy, but in the Harrison household, when you reached a certain age, Christmas lost its innocence. Presents no longer mattered. That time had come for Paul and his older brother Ron, who was slumped next to him on the couch. They had both seen too much and remembered too well. Jonathan and Francis, the blue-eyed twins, rattled boxes to their ears, trying to guess what was inside. Emily fluffed a bow that had gotten smashed in the stacking, and Tina, who just turned 5, was begging for help. Somehow she'd gotten herself tangled in a string of garland. Mother let out a little snort from the kitchen. "Ron, help your sister." Ron grabbed the end of the garland and twirled little Tina around until she was finally free. From the laughter and cheer, you'd never know the family had lost 5 children on this very day. There were reminders, though. Their stockings were hung above the chimney. Their homemade ornaments dangled on branches. The slips of paper with everyone's names. and Tommy's misshapen star on the top of the humongous fake pine. But these reminders were nothing compared to Emily's missing index finger or Jonathan's wheelchair. Ron wore a long-sleeved t-shirt to hide his scars, but Paul had seen them before. The 15-year-old looked like he'd run naked through a field of barbed wire. And finally, there was Tina and the puckered pink skin around her little glass eye. She was the only one who didn't remember how she'd gotten hurt. Paul envied her the most. Only 5 minutes to midnight, and Christmas would officially begin. They'd vote and open presents. Paul wondered if other families had stupid rituals like theirs. Francis stood up. Paul had seen his mangled face 1,000 times, but it always looked worse at night in the shadows. Francis said, "I'm going to clean up this year. Who wants to bet?" Jonathan said, "It's a little hard to tell. Yours are pretty heavy, but I bet you anything Emily's are worth more," he said. "She asked for jewelry." Emily pushed Jonathan's wheelchair. "You can't tell people what I asked for. You know the rules." Jonathan stuck out his foot to keep from crashing into the wall. Francis dragged out a box from behind the tree. "Check this one out. It's the biggest one. It must weigh over 50 pounds. "No way." Jonathan spun back and said, "Maybe Mom got me the weights I wanted." Francis said, "It's Paul's." Paul ran over and read the tag. "It's a mistake," he said. "That's not mine." "It has your name on it," Emily said. "It's not mine. I only asked for clothes." Francis tried to shake the present, but it barely budged. "These are some heavy clothes." "Only clothes. That's all I asked for, I swear." Ron said, "Why wouldn't we believe you?" "'Cause I'm telling you, it's not mine." Jonathan did a quick count. "It's yours." He pointed at a pile of boxes by the ottoman. "And these are your others." Paul told himself weight didn't mean a thing. 2 years ago, the wrapping of one of Brian's gifts had been torn, revealing a new computer box. But inside were only rock-filled socks. Less than a minute to midnight, and Paul still hadn't made up his mind. Sometimes it was better not to, just go with instinct. But this year he felt he should give his decision a little more thought. Now that Tina was old enough, things could get interesting. A loud "ho, ho, ho" bellowed from the hallway, and out came Paul's mother and father, both dressed as Mr. and Mrs. Claus. His dad adjusted his fake beard and grabbed his gut. "Merry Christmas, children!" He slung a red velvet sack over his shoulder. It sounded like metal clanking inside. Mrs. Claus handed everyone a pencil and a piece of paper. The kids scattered and started scribbling. Paul looked over at Emily, who covered her slip. Tina asked, "Why do I have to vote? I don't want to." In a deep Santa voice, Dad asked, "Do you want your presents?" She shuffled her feet and nodded. Mom guided her to the table and helped her hold the pencil. "Do you want 2 extra presents?" Tina's eyes brightened. She nodded even faster. "Then vote for whose presents you want." She eagerly looked around the room. "Anyone's?" "That's the rule," Mom said. "But that's not fair," Jonathan whined. "She doesn't even know what her vote means." "I do too," Tina said. "She's 5 now. Those are the rules, and it's already after midnight," Mom said. Dad took off his Santa hat and bopped Tina's head with the fluffy white ball. "Hurry up," he said. Tina plopped to her knees and scribbled a name. The other kids dropped their slips into the hat. Emily dropped hers as if it were on fire. Ron tossed his in. Paul still hadn't decided. "Tick-tock, Paul," his mother said. Francis threw down his pencil. "You do this every fucking year. Just write down a name." Mom smacked the back of Francis' head. "Language." "Ow!" Paul felt everyone's eyes. Could they have actually picked him this time? He figured he'd had another year, at least. He'd always sworn if his name was called, he wouldn't be like the others. He'd go out with a fight. But now his legs began to shake. Paul remembered he was the only one who cried because he'd only gotten one Christmas present. It's how this all started. Dad shoved the hat into Paul's chest. Paul finally dropped the name. It seemed to fall in slow motion. Mom took the hat and stepped into the middle of the room. Okay, listen up. We're only counting this once unless there's a tie. She pulled out a handful of the slips and read the first. We have one for Paul. She held it up for everyone to see. She turned the next paper over and sounded fairly surprised when she read Paul's name again. That's two. Paul's name was called a third time. He sunk back into the couch. One more vote, and that was it. But he still had the chance for a tie. His mom looked at the next slip and turned to Paul. "Oh, I'm sorry, honey," she said. "Can you read the rest?" Paul said. "It doesn't matter," Jonathan said. "I just want to know," Paul said. "He's stalling," Emily said. Mom looked at the last two slips. "Wow, 6 votes." "That's unanimous," Francis said. Dad grabbed Paul's arm. "You voted for yourself?" Paul stared at the slips covering the table. He always voted for himself because he didn't want to feel responsible. He just never thought it'd actually come back to hurt him. He'd assumed he was the likable one. Paul's mother picked up the red velvet sack and dropped it on the table. His father continued to berate him for not being man enough to write down someone else's name. Paul stood there watching his mother dump out the gleaming contents of the sack. "Okay," she said. "Who wants Paul's presents?" Tina and Emily dove for the table. Jonathan rolled over Francis's foot. Francis punched his brother's neck. "Are you stupid?" Paul leapt toward the table, knocking them both out of the way. He reached for the wooden handle of the jagged bread knife. "Hey, he's supposed to wait," Tina said. Paul's father grabbed his shoulder and dug his big, meaty fingers deep into Paul's clavicle. Instinctively, Paul spun, bringing the knife up and slicing through the Santa suit. The sound of the blade carving through his father's stomach was muffled under the padded costume, but he was no longer the invincible titan of Paul's childhood. His father took hold of the knife, tried to stop Paul from twisting it, but Paul dropped a little lower and drove the blade against the bottom rib bone. His father began to falter. Paul pulled the knife out, slicing through his father's palm. He went to stab his old man again, but a blinding white pain ripped through his lower back. Paul whipped around, his knife tearing through the air until it met Francis's cheek. Francis cried out and dropped his butcher knife. Paul turned back to his father, who was now on his knees. Another blade tore through Paul's arm, but he concentrated on his father. He stood over him, stabbing in and out of the soft, bulging skin at the back of his father's skull. The blood poured out and dripped through the fake beard. Paul's Achilles snapped and he fell. He saw the bubbled flesh of his forearm and raised the knife to all 5 of his brothers and sisters. He didn't want to hurt them. He knew they felt the same, or at least that's what they wanted to believe as Ron plunged the wooden skewer into Paul's chest. Francis drove his knife into Paul's arm. Emily stabbed his right. No longer able to keep his grip, Paul's knife clanged to the ground. Tina stepped forward and dragged her tiny steak knife across his throat. Paul smiled and took the weapon from her trembling hands. Gently, he made Tina turn and face his pile of presents.